Hi, guys. Welcome to Her Story. This is a space where we will be talking about reinvention, resilience, and the real stories behind the lives that we build. Today's episode is just a little different because I am sharing my own story and just having a conversation with myself, which is kind of hard sometimes. But a friend of mine in the real estate industry had done the same thing. And I got inspired by doing that, by listening to her, and decided I would do the same thing. So a lot of people see me where I am now, the real estate company, the events, the brand, but they don't really know the beginning and the story in between. So I'm going to go back a little bit. I grew up on the west side of Cincinnati. My mom is from Milwaukee. My dad is from Cincinnati. And I grew up in this cute little bi-level home on the west side. And we had an above ground pool and was very happy. But I also didn't really know much. I mean, we grew up middle class and very happy. My dad made some awesome homemade pizzas, and my mom didn't work, but was always there for us. I have a brother and I have a stepsister. And my dad was in the insurance business, but he had brothers that owned a real estate brokerage, Rhoda Realty. My maiden name is Rhoda. And I swore on my life I would never get into real estate. But anyway, he was in the insurance business. So I went to Oak Hills High School. I went to a Catholic grade school, and then I went to a middle school and went to this public high school, which is pretty close to my house. My parents were hardworking and it was a good experience. I was a cheerleader in high school and I was not very good at it, but I liked it. It was fun. So neither of my parents went to college. They worked really hard though. And they always told us if we believed in something, we had to work hard to earn it. So we learned that we had to work hard to get the results that we wanted. But a fun story, the unexpected sport, I should say, is turning point number one, is that we had this above ground pool, and I did not come from a sports family. I could have probably been a really good runner, honestly. Talk about that later, but my parents just didn't know. So they said, "Hey, you should try out for this synchronized swimming team." And I would do these like backflips on our above ground pool, which was not very good at the time, but I said, "Sure." So I went to the Gamble Nipper YMCA on the west side, and that decision to try out for the team changed everything. I made the team. I got paired with a duet partner, and I will just explain a couple things about synchronized swimming. You're either on a team in a duet, which is two people, or you have a trio, which is three people. I was paired up with a girl that was completely physically opposite of me and had zero goals the same as me, but we had a lot of fun and we were friends and it worked out. I always loved being, the person that was just wanting to learn and grow. Midway through me swimming there, my mom heard about an athlete program where you could have a synchronized swimmer come and live with you. So we had Stephanie come from Switzerland and she lived with us. In fact, she not only lived with us, but slept in my own bed because we didn't have a very big house. And I was like, oh my God, this is like crazy. But it was so great because she actually taught me a lot about hard work and getting more sleep and just was very focused. My parents didn't, we didn't have a ton of money and we didn't have enough pool training for her to do what she wanted. So my parents were able to find this private house in Loveland and we were able to rent pool time there. That year was really critical for me because they really must have believed that there was something there and they invested in my dream, which to most people would have sounded ridiculous. I'm in someone's pool in Loveland and we're doing synchronized swimming in the wintertime, but we ended up doing really well and making like state championships. So then fast forward, she went back home. I got paired with my friend Kelly, and she was amazing swimmer, way better than me. We ended up winning state and junior Olympics, and that was like crazy. We were in the newspaper, and it was so fun. I guess that just goes to show you that hard work equals real results. But to the rest of the world, I don't know what it meant other than that we felt really awesome about it. And Kelly has the biggest space in my heart. She's no longer with us, and I think about her every single day. I got offered an opportunity to swim at the Ohio State University. Again, going back, my parents did not go to college and didn't have the income to like send us there, even though they did very well and provided the perfect life for us. At least we thought at the time, and we were happy. But a partial scholarship wasn't enough. I mean, I went anyway, and I wanted to go to fashion design school, but they didn't have that program. So I chose to go into education, art education. I was very creative. I loved art, but I didn't realize how hard it was to swim at that level. 7 days a week, ballet, yoga, Pilates. weight training, running, swimming twice a day, and school. I mean, there was no sorority life for me. I went to class on a bike. I didn't have a car and I had my hair wet. So if anybody saw me in college, like it was not pretty, but we worked hard. But, during that time, I had a little bit of an issue. Let's call it the reset at the time. I was not the best student in high school. I had some grades that were not good enough. And I found out I was redshirted, which means that you have to take certain classes to qualify to swim. So I had to go back to Cincinnati. I lived with my parents and I went to the University of Cincinnati. I took statistic classes. I got straight A's. And I was like realizing during that time that as much as that training seemed so stressful and I was literally like not able to even function sometimes, it was so hard. I had a realization that I was ready to go back. And that period taught me something really, really, really important that I think oftentimes we forget about in our growth, and that you have to step back sometimes in order to move forward. And that stepping back wasn't pretty. I don't talk about it very much. So anyway, then comes the comeback. I went back to Ohio State and I was able to get even a little bit more money for a scholarship. And I returned with a new focus. My grades like completely changed. I was getting straight A's. I was in art education still, and I was able to get put with a duet partner that was incredible and still one of my best friends, Jenny. I had a great roommate, Abby, and it was just the most amazing experience. We were all American athletes, national champions. Our team was gold medal champion. My duet was a silver medal national champion, 4-time All American. And I was an academic scholar athlete as well. So, wow, I get a little emotional thinking about that because I literally just didn't even think that that could ever happen. And I'm still really close to everybody that I swam with. So during that time, though, most of the people that we were swimming with at that level were getting ready to either go on the national team or the Olympics. So that was the Olympics that was in Atlanta. And that was an opportunity. But at that point, I was starting to get burnt out, decided to go to grad school, met a guy, got engaged, believe it or not. And I was super young, but was able to go to the Atlanta Olympics and train alongside the team, more or less just help coach, and also lived there for free, was living in Georgia Tech and having the best time learning there, just trying to figure out what my next step was going to be. And then also returned back to Ohio State, finish my grad program, where in that time my relationship fell apart and I graduated and decided that I would just not take a job that I got offered in Columbus or Atlanta, but go back to my parents' house, which is sometimes really hard if you think about it. I don't like I can't think about like how I don't remember that as much, I guess, at this time, but I think looking back, I felt embarrassed, but it really shouldn't have been. It was another reset for me to figure out where I was going to go next. This isn't important because I don't think people realize what it's like when an athlete ends their career. I mean, it's like ending a job. It's like retiring. Your entire identity is wrapped up into that life. And it was painful. And at some point, whether it's an injury or a graduation or you get cut, that chapter ends. And then suddenly, you're just asking yourself, who am I now? So I really sat with that a long time and thought about that. And during that time, I got a job offer to teach high school. So I spent many years teaching at that high school. It's called Coleraine High School. And again, I would be asking myself on a daily basis, like, how was I like almost an Olympic athlete? And now I'm teaching high school. But like honestly, the high school experience was so fun. We had a blast. I had a blast. I should say we. The kids did too, I think. I mean, I was so young teaching, and that was also difficult. But many of those students in my class are still friends, their families, and some of them went off to play sports. I was integral in having conversations with them almost as a friend or a peer. And also some of my students they went off to have families and I was able to be with them, see their kids and their family life. So we'll back up a little bit here. That was a time where I was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do because this isn't going to be it. But I didn't know what it was. I also forgot to mention that I was the high school cheerleading coach, and I literally was like, "Why am I the cheerleading coach?" I mean, there was no YouTube figuring out how to do stuff. I know I was a cheerleader, but I mean, I literally was so stressed all the time about having to do that, and The team ended up killing it. I mean, they were so incredible, but having both those jobs and teaching 6 spells a day of 30 kids was a lot, to the point where I was like, "I literally am gonna lose my mind." Plus, I was living at my parents' house on the West Side, and it was a far drive. But I realized pretty quickly that that wasn't going to work. So, anyway, I moved out. I got an apartment with my little bit of money that I was making. I was teaching, and then I was also working at bars on the weekends. I worked at a couple banquet centers. I mean, I was making pretty good side money here. And I was like, wow, I'm making more money doing that than I am teaching. But I knew that I wanted to have a career. I needed to have something. So I ended up getting a roommate in East Walnut Hills, a guy. Actually, he was super cool. He lived on the bottom. It was like a huge house. I was on the other side, and it was like in the most not good neighborhood at the time. We thought it was cool. And we decided to go out to this place called Party in the Park one night, and I never went out ever. I never drank because I had to get up early. But we went out for a little bit, and um, we had so much fun. We didn't have cell phones, but I ended up getting ready to leave, and I ended up meeting my husband. He was there with some friends, and he had a business card, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a doctor." And he was not, by the way, like, whatever. He's really good in sales. I was like, "Okay, cool. I have a boyfriend." So I gave him my name on a piece of paper, and he kept it with my home phone number. And it turns out that he knew my brother. So he ended up calling me in my house, which is even funnier because we had a regular telephone. And my roommate was like, "Oh my God, the guy's on the phone." So he ended up taking me out, and we dated off and on a little bit here and there, but I was really still focused trying to figure out what I was gonna do. Fast forward, I can't even talk fast forward, we really kinda started getting into each other, and I really enjoyed my time with him. He was super funny and fun, and it was, like, easy to talk to him, and he made me laugh. So I'm like, "Oh, this could work." So, I still am stuck in Ohio, though. He's not from Cincinnati, he's from Michigan, and he's stuck in Ohio still too. I gave that away too early, but we, uh, we ended up dating a really long time, and he said to me, "Hey, I have this friend who's in this software business," and that was big at the time, "and maybe you should, like, if you don't love your job, you could get a job there." So I interviewed, got this job. Then they ended up switching the job around a little bit. I ended up working for Siebel Systems, which is a great enterprise software company that sold to Oracle, and I was in customer relationship management software. I wrote manuals, trained people how to use them. Sounds boring, but it was actually really cool. I got to travel to California. I lived in LA, New York, Singapore. That's a whole funny story. I went to Singapore and it was so hot. I had like pantyhose on. I don't know. But anyway, I literally had so much fun teaching, learning. And who knew that that was going to be critical for my business now of understanding software and tech, because I'm very passionate about it. I'm kind of a tech nerd. That experience taught me a ton. Who knew it at the time? So Jeff and I were dating about 4 years at that time, and decided to go see one of my friends who was living in London, Abby, and her husband. They're both amazing. And we went out of town. He had a cute little house in Hyde Park, and his realtor called and said, "Hey, Jeff, your house, you should sell it. Like, the market's crazy. You could make an extra 100,000." So sure enough, he's like, "All right, fine, I'll sell my house." So we came back with no house, or he came back from the house I was renting. And he's like, "Well, look, I'm gonna go find a house." So I was like, "Oh, let's go look around." So we drove around and we fell into this neighborhood called North Avondale, and we fell in love with this like storybook Tudor with a pool. It was like a cottage. And I remember being like, "Oh, we could raise a family here someday." Because we were both talking about getting married. And of course, my mom and dad were like, "You can't live together until you get married." So we knew at that point that we were probably getting to that point. So he proposed to me. He bought the house. I moved in, and it turned into be a little bit of a lot of work, that house. But I decided to retire from my job because after we got married, we got pregnant with our first daughter, and I wanted to stay home anyway. So I became very committed to taking care of the house. I was very handy anyway. Growing up on the West Side, people are very handy. They do a lot of their own work. I was doing pretty much everything, including painting. I asked Jeff to paint one time, and he painted like the door shut. So that was the last time he ever painted. So I really took that role pretty serious. Um, we had Skylar. She is now 23, and I just did not want to work. But then after about 12 months or so, I started feeling like I needed something. Like, should I write a book? I mean, you name it. I just didn't want to not have something else. And I felt guilt about that because even my mom would say, like, "You should have a just be a stay-at-home mom," and which I have full respect. It's the hardest job in the entire world, but I just wanted something else, and I chose that. I didn't get forced into that. Jeff was very amazing about, like, "You don't have to work." Like, I mean, you do what you wanna do, but I wanted to do something. So, he said, "Why don't you get into real estate, you know? I think you're so good at the house stuff, and your dad has a background, his family, and you could be like a neighborhood agent maybe." So, I got this running stroller that was like one of those, like, single kid running strollers, and I would take Skylar out for these really long walks around the neighborhood where we lived. The neighborhood that we live in is historic homes. They are all, like, in the 19th century, different, amazing, but they often need a lot of work. But, when I got there was a lot of older people, and I would walk around and just pick out my favorite. I would make notes on a piece of paper, and I would come home, and when Skylar took a nap, I would just put them together, and then so I worked for this company. It was, like, a local company in Cincinnati called Comey& and Shepherd, and I worked at an office downtown 'cause that's where it was closest to my house, and I liked urban living. So they kind of encouraged me, "Why don't you send some postcards?" So I started sending out, gosh, like maybe 50 postcards a month because it was expensive. And I did it every month until one day someone called me and said, "Hey, we got your postcard and we were thinking about moving and we'd love to interview you." So I went over there and they had all my postcards on their refrigerator. And that was the beginning of my career. So I needed a little bit of help. I was doing this without any help at all. I hired a nanny, Beth, and she went to Xavier's from St. Louis originally. She didn't have a car, but she would walk straight from Xavier University, which is literally right across the street from my house at the time. And she would just help me. I could go to the gym or I could work or I could go to the grocery. We didn't have Instacart or all those things. And um, when Skylar would sleep, I would obviously be home. So when she was awake, I was always there. And then we had another child, Sydney, and I was still working, but I was getting really busy at this time. So I was still at the same company. I was selling about 15 million a year at the time and had decided that maybe I need a little bit of help. So I hired like a transaction coordinator. Um, things were going pretty good. But of course, you know, once you get to that next level, you start, I mean, at least me, start thinking about like, where am I going with this? Like, what am I doing? And I just couldn't grow anymore. And that is crazy to say that. But I mean, I was still having so much fun with the kids. I was very much involved with the children, every aspect. And maybe it's that athlete mentality that becomes your superpower because in my head, I was like, gosh, I could juggle school and athletics. I can do this too. But I took my time. I took my time, which when people say, I've been in business 3 years and I sold 100 million, well, that's fine. But I also raised three daughters. And, during that time, I haven't gotten to the third yet. So, of course, getting to this threshold where I was working longer or harder, we decided that maybe I decided we should sell the house and get a little bit of a bigger house, maybe one that didn't need as much work. So we put the house on the market and it sold like immediately. And then we were like, oh my gosh, we have nowhere to go. That was just probably not the best idea. And then there was a recession, literally. So here I am, no house. We didn't want to buy a house at the time. So we decided, well, we're going to just rent from this developer. I was selling these condos up in Mount Adams and we'll just rent up there. It'd be great. Well, then surprise, the best gift ever. We found out we were pregnant with our third daughter, Shay. And I think at first I was like, holy cow, what am I going to do? I have a third daughter and no house and we have no bedroom for her. But we can figure this out. So she is the greatest gift, all three of our girls. And we had a lot of fun living in that temporary area. And Beth came along with us and was still working for us, became part of our family. She would come over and help us. We would take trips together as a family. And so that kind of went on for a little bit. And then the market started shifting. We started looking again. And I was doing leases at the time because, during a recession, it's hard to get good mortgages. So I was doing really well in that area. But also, Jeff was really, leading the family at that point. So I was really focused on the kids. But I wasn't going to give up what I built. I was just staying patient and I was trusting the compound of time. Like I knew I could do this. I could do this again. But this is the shift where I think I had to become a leader. So we found a house, and you'll never believe it. It's actually in the neighborhood that we currently live in. And it was bigger, way bigger. Turned out to be way more work, but we're like, this is it. So we go there, we move in, so exciting. And I continue to sell houses in the neighborhood and be very passionate. And I've been the president twice of that neighborhood, and it's been great. But I knew at that time too, I wanted to continue growing my team. So I needed to have a little bit more help. So I went to Coldwell Banker. They helped me build a team. So a real team, buyer's agents, transaction coordinators, marketing people. The real shift though is that while they taught me to do that, I realized that I was doing it all myself anyway. They were just kind of showing me how it's done. And there were teams that were merging to try to beat us. We were a top team, and I did not want a mega team. So I think at one point I really had this conversation with myself like, Heather Herr, you are an athlete. You are you're competing with yourself. And anyone that wants to compete with you, it's just not the right fit. So I think during that process of growth, I was realizing that maybe I needed to kind of either start my own company or do something different. So fast forward, I ended up partnering with a company called Side, and they are an amazing platform that supports me on the back end, but I am my own company, Private Real Estate Collection. I brought my Team Her, over with me, and we actually moved our entire office to a social club called Fueled Collective. Jeff and I own that, and it's an amazing space. So we can collaborate with people outside of our industry. So that sounds really exciting. And then it got really hard for a minute, because when you make a change, a lot of people are like excited and then they start questioning what you're doing and who you are. And if you don't believe in yourself, I go back to that athlete mentality, holding my breath under the water for a really long time, having to make sure that I didn't come up because the 7 other people on my team would have lost. I just said, well, you know what? I'm not going back. And a lot of people didn't believe in what I was doing. And unfortunately, I was not a good leader, maybe to help make the decision for them or lead them in a better direction. But things shifted the way that they should, and the dots connected. And the team that I have now is great because I can actually lead them properly and they want to be there and they're all thriving. Every person that was ever on my team would 10x their business. But everyone thinks the grass is greener, so that's fine. I knew what I was going to do and I knew I wasn't going to give up. My current team would tell you that I would stay awake at night making sure that they're successful. And I always make sure that we have enough people to help support them so their growth and their goals are taken care of. So I think an important thing once again is that I got a little bit of pushback and then a forward movement once again. So I've had my own company now for, gosh, 4 years. And I started that when I was almost 50 years old. I think about how people say, oh, I don't know what I want to do. My kids will say that. And they're all doing amazing. But I went from an athlete to an entrepreneur to building a community. I do believe that during that real estate time, I built the community that I live in now and still live in. I also have a house in Florida. And I will step back on that a little bit. When I decided to start my company, I really wanted to be able to have a global footprint. So I'm licensed in Ohio, Kentucky, and Florida. I mean, I could open offices anywhere, but I realized that that is also, you have to really be present for that leadership. So I pulled back a little bit. We bought a house in Florida 4 years ago or so, right around the same time. We had hurricanes and flooding that had happened on the island. But the one thing that I did when we bought this house that I will never regret is I joined the board and I got super involved. I didn't go out to the bars. I didn't, you know, I did have fun, don't get me wrong, but I really stayed committed to trying to understand the community and being part of it. We live in St. Armands. There are 200 residents on this island, and I went headfirst into to joining that board and being involved. So I am now going into another year as a board member. I'm on the beautification. I'm chairing the beautification committee, but I have experience in that, having been the president of my neighborhood association in Cincinnati. I think there's a lot of crossover too. If you think about like where we live, Ohio, Kentucky, and Florida. So that worked out really well. And then in regards to the Florida aspect, people always ask me how we ended up here, and I forgot to mention this, but our girls they were all swimmers. I never wanted my girls to be in a subjective sport, so we always encouraged swimming because we always said, You talk to the wall first, you win, you compete against yourself, that's it. Well, they all swam at these meets in St. Petersburg, so we would come down here and just come here for lunch and then go back and forth. So that's how we kind of ended up down here, and we had friends down here. So those are kind of cool things to think about, when you flash back on your how did you end up somewhere? But I think just looking back at that journey, and here I am now in Florida, I feel like it's all coming together. And then one other thing is during 2020, when COVID was going on and we had the social club, I always wanted to have this women's group because of my synchronized swimming background and having these women that are really supportive. And it was going to happen. And then COVID happened. So I decided not to move forward with that. So I just launched Her Story because I've been working on this forever. I have a trademark and I'm so, so excited because it's all coming together because it's exactly what I had dreamed of prior. And I knew always in the back of my mind that that's what I was going to bring to life again. So I think I have kind of a unique name in that regard, Her Story with two R's. And it's not about me, it's about you. And it's about the resilience. It's about becoming some other version of yourself. It's like, who do I want to be? Like, I mean, I'm 54 years old almost, and I'm still asking myself that question. And so I'm excited to connect with women that maybe either already there or want to be somewhere or have no idea. And the most beautiful thing about that is that most great teams, most great groups start with a group that if nobody is the same, and that's the beautiful thing. And then we all are there for each other. So, with that being said, I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to be launching these podcast interviews. This one is obviously a solo storytelling of myself, but it will be me interviewing other people one on one, but also salon podcasts where I talk to groups together, which is really a cool conversation. I think having been a speaker this year a lot, the coolest thing that happened is when you get off stage and you go behind the stage and you have this really great offline conversation that really goes somewhere and this intimate relationship with people that you thought you would never meet. And then you become friends and you can share your stories together. There's such power there. And I think that is exactly what her story is going to be and is. And I'm so glad I got to tell you a little bit about me. So I look forward to hearing more about you.